All right, hey guys, OFD checking in here, and today we're finally going to take the full review look at the Glycine Air Man, the GL0071, the DC-4. Really cool watch. I did a unboxing on this watch about a little over a week ago, and I've been getting a lot of wrist time with it. You guys can see I've already changed out the factory nylon strap that came on it, and I'll show a little bit more of that. But really quick, before we dive into this watch, I wanted to mention that tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 6 o'clock Pacific, I am going to be on a live stream with Just the Watch Half Past blog and Relative Time. Dave, Alton, and Shane are going to have me on there for the collection Conundrum, which is a kind of a game and everything like that. I'm talking about some of the watches from my collection. So if you guys are interested, I'm going to leave a link to that show down below in the description, and definitely check that out this evening. It's going to be a really fun show. So, all right, guys, the Glycine Air Man. Now, the history of the Glycine Air Man goes back to the early 1950s. I do believe that the first one was developed in 1953, and very, very popular watches with military airmen. As a matter of fact, they reached their peak in the 1960s during the Vietnam War, and very, very popular watches among airmen back in the day. So this is a remake of that early 1960s model. Those were originally in a 36 millimeter case by 46. Really nice compact watch. Now they brought this watch up into more modern sizing, and I know some people that give them a little bit of heartburn, and they went to a 42 millimeter case from side to side. So this one comes in straight up 42 millimeters. I'm measuring 49.9, so basically 50 lug tip to lug tip, slightly over 12. 12.2 is what I measure on the thickness of the watch from the back of the case to the top of the sapphire crystal, and you are running 22 millimeter lug openings. Now, besides the Cyclops, which is newer to these models, this watch is very, very true to the original. I mean, pretty much everything on it. There's a couple little things that are off, of course, besides the size of the watch, but other than that, the watch is very, very true to the original. I'll bring it up here a little bit closer so we can talk about the dial. The dial layout, like I said, is very, very traditional Glycine Air Man, what you'd expect from seeing the original watches. The Cyclops has been added and makes it easier to read that date. The date on the watch, the date wheel, is always red, which is pretty cool like that. I think the red really stands out. Now, beautiful dial layout, clean GMT functionality. You've got the 1 through 12 on the main dial, as well as the 24-hour track there in between, which is really nice. Bezel is keeping track of your 24-hour times, and this does rotate. The Dauphine hands on the watch are full of lume up the center there, Swiss Superluminova. You can see the lume pip on the second hand sweeping around there. There is no lume on the GMT hand, which is this straight hand you guys can see here almost lining up at 8 o'clock, since we're coming up on 8 o'clock. I don't have that set for any other time zones, just for my regular local time zone. But I'll show you how you manipulate that. The dial, the writing on the dial is very classic. This is exactly like the 1960s were. The Glycine up there, Airman at the top, the AM, PM on the dial, and your DC-4 down there. This is a Swiss-made watch, show you that. Now, I can tell you guys I changed out the strap just because most of the Glycine Airman watches come on a leather strap, and this one came on this nylon, which I don't mind. I like the nylon strap. It does have a signed buckle there. Not a big fan of the bars. They feel kind of small and cheap, but it also makes it wear super comfortable because they're not sticking up through the nylon here or anything like that. But one of the first things I did was I did change it out. I put this on. I think this is a Makes is the company. Yeah, Makes. There it is. Get it to focus there. Makes is this brand. I'll leave a link to them down below. I've done a review of this strap. Very nice strap, and it looks really, really good on the watch. So show you guys some of the functionality here of this watch. So if you're not familiar, it is a GMT watch, and this bezel does rotate. And since the bezel does rotate, you can actually keep track of up to 3 time zones with this. So you've got your standard time zone here, you've got your secondary time zone here with your GMT hand, which you can independently move, and then you can move your 12 hours or your 24 hours into a different position and use that to actually keep track of a third time zone using your main hands on the watch. So it's a really handy function, and especially if you're like a world traveler and going to be traveling for business into multiple different time zones during a work week, it's very handy to have that functionality. Honestly, I don't do a whole lot of travel. I think it looks cool. It's almost like a dive watch to me. I love GMTs, but I don't really use them all that much. So take a look at the crowns. Now, this is one thing that's a little bit different here on the watch. You can see the crosshatch crown here on the Bezel Lockdown crown. On the originals, they were both the crosshatch crown. I wish they had kind of carried this crosshatch crown over to the main crown. It's also a bigger crown, and it's easier to manipulate than the standard crown here. That does have the Glycine logo there, as you can see it on the main crown. But that is one of the things that I wish they had left original. Like I said, it kind of goes back from... I like this bigger crown. I like the cross hatching. I think it would have been more in line with the original watches. The watch is running the Sellita SW330, which is a really, really nice movement. It's a 25 joule movement. Beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour. I believe it's around 38 to 40 hours of power reserve, but it's a very, very nice movement. This is a clone of the ETA 2893. It's actually a better movement because it's a higher joule count. This is 25 versus the 21 joules of the 2893. So, joules mean that it's in those wear spots. The more joules you have in the movement, it's probably going to be a better movement. As a matter of fact, Sellita for a long time was manufacturing parts for ETA, and they were putting them in their watches, and most people had no idea that there was an amalgamation of, Sellita and ETA parts in there. But nice rotor there with the plane engraved on it, the Glycine Air Man there. You can see all the information, sapphire crystal. And I do like the display case back on this watch, which looks very, very nice. So let's go ahead and pause it for a second, get this watch on my 7-inch wrist, and then guys, make sure to stick around for the loom shot. All right, so here we go. 42 millimeter case, fits the wrist really, really well. I love the way this watch looks. One of the things I didn't mention, with the 2 screw-down crowns, you do have 200 meters of water resistance on this watch. If you're going to go take it for sports or water, anything like that, it'll actually work good for pretty much anything. Of course, you're not going to want to wear it on the leather strap. But hey, before we go out with the loom shot here, I did want to show you guys how the bezel lockdown works and how the GMT hand works. I'll show you that really quick, and then the loom shot. All right, so both the crowns, like I said, are screw down. So we're going to go ahead and unscrew our main crown here. And in your first position, of course, this is a hand windable movement. And if you pull it all the way out, the movement hacks. You can see that second hand stop there. Go ahead and push it in, and then we're going to get it in its first position out, where it's not hacking the movement or anything yet. This is where you're going to actually manipulate the date functionality, or the date setting. I'll show you that by turning it down, or by turning it, I should say, counterclockwise on the crown. You can see the date changing there. And then to manipulate your GMT hand, you go clockwise, and you can actually move that in a different position. So with that, you can keep track of a different time zone on your GMT hand. And like I said, you can also manipulate your bezel in conjunction with your main hour hand or your GMT hand to keep track of yet another time zone. So it's a very, very high functionality as far as GMT watches go. So really like the way that looks. So let's go ahead and screw the crown back down, guys, and dim the lights and see the Swiss Supernova on the Glycine Air Man. Well, that's always a good sign, right? We just dim the studio lights and the watch is already glowing. So I've been wearing this watch, guys, pretty much constantly, rotating with my Oyster Perpetual 41 green, but it is a fun watch. It's really a nice watch. I've actually worn it out mountain biking a couple of times, which I usually don't do with an automatic watch, but I have worn it riding my mountain bike and whatnot. Super comfortable, really cool looking watch, and just really screams Glycine Air Man, harkens back to the originals. There's a lot of different ones available out there, but for me, this was the one I had to have. So, all right, guys, you like the video, give me a thumbs up down there at the bottom. Check the links down below for the collection Conundrum video coming up this evening at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. And if you guys like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you have not subscribed to the OFD channel yet, please do. Please do. Thanks, guys.